it probably doesn't work exactly the way we want it to. So, and that is as far as we got on Friday. And then I just summarized some of the stuff that we talked a little bit about in previous documents, where we discussed things that might be in the metadata API. Previously, the metadata API discussion was around things to provide something that looked a bit like contract for the application, and possibly allowed to look up the identity of the peer or active connections.
Sorry, Louis, could you talk more again about the gotcha with how the kubelet works?
I'm not going to claim to exactly completely understand the limitations. Right, the documentation says that kubelet performs the health check by entering the pod. It doesn't actually do that. It uses the node network namespace. The only thing that enters the pod is the exec health check, as it has to.
Got it.
Yeah, so, and then, there's another question mark. If we're going to provide a init container binary to do this, a suggestion was to just put the feature in the ztunnel. So, or a kind of specialized build of ztunnel that's like ztunnel check. And there's a little bit of a discussion of that in the doc. John, do you have anything to add on this one?
Nope.
Anyway,
Okay.
we were just chatting about this in the TOC thread when Keith gave us the update about the issues you were having, Jackie. So.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah. No, I'll take a deeper look at this today and add some comments. So yeah, thanks for putting this together. Yeah, I hadn't anticipated the differences and limitations in our current implementation for the init container, because I was figuring it out as I was doing it. So yeah, this is helpful. Thanks. I'll take a look.
Yeah, no problem. Anyway, folks, take a look at the doc. It's linked in the TOC notes.
So Louis, I guess a good thing about the proposal is so you don't need actual permission for the pod in the init container, other than be able to check ztunnel's health check endpoint. And
yeah, you just need network access to the link local IP address.
Okay. And then the other thing is also, you noted at one point is if users are not using IP table for traffic redirection, then that's another win situation for this too.
Yeah, I mean, in general, we prefer not to rely on implementation detail to check a behavior if we could. I guess it's more like the difference between a unit test and an integration test. And so having a higher level up mechanism is probably a more durable solution, which is what we want. There's also other benefits, right? Tooling could probably leverage this. People could SSH into pods, hit the endpoint to get status and things like that from ztunnel.
So I have a question. So if we can show ztunnel health check properly, would it be possible that we don't even need the init container? I mean, I'm just thinking loud here. Like if Istio knows, okay, out of my 10 nodes, there's one of the node ztunnel are not healthy, can we just remove those from the endpoint for the traffic to route to without asking user?
Just routing is not sufficient. What if I have like outbound traffic, right?
Yeah.
So that would be outbound traffic to. Can you give me an example?
Yeah. So like if I enroll my app into Ambient and then I call google.com or whatever, that better actually go through ambient and then be redirected to my waypoint or add MTLS or be denied or logged or whatever they're using ambient for, right? It's not safe to have the mesh removed just because it's egress traffic instead of ingress.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, enrollment has to be atomic. Or ideally should be atomic. So like one of the problems using Kubernetes health checking to check it is it doesn't prevent the application from starting up. So you could have the health check, and let's say the health check worked the way we want it to work, and the healthy endpoint doesn't succeed. The application may still have come up and emitted network traffic. Now, it would get killed, but it could have done something it shouldn't have done in that limited period. That may be acceptable to a broad percentage of users, but it's still not ideal.
I guess you would have the same problem if you, on that particular programmatic node, zTunnel was not running and your application pod still goes to running. I mean, today, right? Without
Yeah,
the
I mean,
health check today.
Yeah, so the health check would strictly be an improvement. It would we consider it an atomic solution? No. An init container is, because it has a guaranteed sequence, mostly. It's still not perfect. But those are the two ways of timing points at which we can detect the problem. Using an exec health check may solve the networking problem with the health check and link local IP addresses. The problem is we're mostly going to have distroless containers. So how do you exec in and run curl? Yeah. So the exec checks have, without there being an explicit available binary in the image, it's very hard to rely on that style of health check.
Okay.
So Louis, just to confirm, is this there's an health check, like there's an endpoint per like ambient enabled pod? So it's not just a singular like zTunnel health check that's like zTunnel's unhealthy if any of the apps.
No, oh, it's for each pod, right?
Okay, for each pod.
Yeah, so we have to, does Istio CNI needs to establish, or zTunnel needs to establish the link local IP address and listen on it, which given that zTunnel NS enters the pod, it should be able to bind that address.
Got it.
I mean, I can see it's useful for each pod, but I'm worried about the complexity we're adding too. Like, what are the scenarios that the traffic redirection was only set up for 2 pods on the node, but not for the other 5 pods on the same node? Because I thought the problem when people initially report this was it just didn't work at all for all the application or pods on that node.
So I don't know if we actually have a clear signal about that, Lynn. I think we've seen a variety of symptoms. There are cases where all pods are unhealthy. I don't know if we've seen I think we've seen cases where some pods are healthy and some are not. Either way, we need some way to detect it. I don't think the solution is actually particularly complicated.
And this is healthy in the sense of redirection is
Yes.
configured. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, we definitely have cases of some are healthy and some are unhealthy just due to And I just messaged this on Slack to a user where this is just because of the reconciliation logic that we have. If it misses a pause, it's missed, and then we skip it in all future iterations, regardless of whether the binary picks up on it or not.
So on the same node, this could happen too.
Yeah, unless we fix the reconciliation.
Okay.
Yes, I mean, I think, we have a collection of issues in this area. I don't think assuming just node scope failure is okay, given that we have probably some known issues, but also some unknown issues, frankly.
Yeah, totally agree. Yeah.
Anyway,
Please go ahead.
it obviously requires some. Oh, go ahead, Keith. Sorry.
You can finish up. I'm got a related but somewhat different thing I was going to comment on. So go ahead and finish up, Louis.
Yeah, I mean, I was just going to say this. Right, this is a proposal. It requires some investigation and prototyping, but I'm relatively hopeful that it would yield a better and now possibly the only outcome, given what Jackie just found with her investigation. So anyway, go ahead, Keith.
Yeah, so I've got a little bit of an update from the upstream perspective. I did some digging on an issue John opened in Kubernetes, talked to some internal folks who work on NRI and Containerd, and also looked at some work that Ben Leggett did while he was still with the project. And TLDR, I think that there's an approach upstream that might help us, or there's some work upstream that might help us sort of fix this sort of more firmly upstream moving forward. Basically, there's two parts to this, right? There is the node scale out problem, where a new node comes up and maybe a pod gets scheduled before Istio CNI is ready. And then there's the restart problem. On the node scale out problem, there is a upstream kept called node readiness conditions that in theory, as I understand it, will allow us to register Istio CNI as a gate for node readiness. And we could do that with Pilot. This is similar to the tank controller approach.
What's the timeline on that, Keith, though?
It's pretty far in the future. That's why I said, like, eventually these upstream things will help us, but the node readiness cap is just now starting. It's not even in alpha yet, so we've got a ways to go before we can rely on it. So this is not at all to take. I think we still need to invest in a solution for now, because it will definitely, older clusters will be affected by this. But just as an update in case folks are interested for upstream, node readiness is being worked on, and so I'm going to see if I can find some time to talk to the folks working on that cap and make sure our use case is being considered for that node scale out problem. The other part of the problem is restarts, and that one's a bit more difficult just because we don't have really strong signal at the API server level of when a node has been restarted or goes down. And I think that the work that Ben did will help us out here, because instead of Ben changed the CNI spec upstream to where instead of having chain CNIs and primary CNIs fight over a single contested YAML config file with no locking, there's now kind of a subdirectory. And so one of the problems with this on restart is that basically, imagine if you're running Cilium and Istio CNI, node restarts, Cilium comes up, crushes Istio's version, and a pod could come up during the time span where that config is overwritten and Istio CNI comes up. With Ben's changes, the the CNI change CNIs would be in a subdirectory. And so as long as that subdirectory is persisted after node restart, then Cilium sort of won't crush it. And on a restart, the node will wait for the Istio CNI to be up and running before scheduling any pods, or pods won't be able to come up before the, it's actually after scheduling, but pods won't be able to come up because the nodes, the container D specifically still was waiting for CNI to execute. This does not fix the AWS bottle rocket piece of the equation. We had a couple of users who were using bottle rocket as an OS, and they actually wiped their file system slash etc specifically. So this doesn't solve that problem, but I'm thinking that maybe we can work with the AWS folks to have some more durable, a more durable file system there, just because I think the two of these that I just talked about solve hopefully like 80% of the problem long term, and any other, maybe we'll find more, but I'm just wanting to provide an update there. I'm working on plumbing through Ben's changes to Containerd and Cryo over the next few months here, and talked to the Containerd maintainer, and he said that because it's just a CNI change, this is just a library and not the actual gRPC Containerd service, we could probably backport this to Containerd 2.0 and 2.1. So that might be a little bit sooner than I expected even. We need to talk to Cryo still, but that's the current state of a more permanent upstream fix for this problem, in case anyone's interested. That's it. If no one has any questions, that's all I wanted to add.
So Keith, thanks for the update. Can you talk about how is this going to change if we are doing the health check in zTunnel or not? It sounds like the first one we can rely on it. The second one, which is the node restarts, I assume that's only for solving problem unique to restarts, but not on the fresh nodes. So would this eliminate the need for us to investigate into the health check? Because I'm not sure about the timeline when you said that you actually be able to backport in a couple of older releases for Containerd.
Yeah, for the restart one specifically with GoCNI, would need to get back to the timeline once I can get the issues and PRs open and get maintainers discussing. It would. As far as the health check goes, I think it would probably eliminate the need for it in that use case. And I think actually if you pair the CNI change in Containerd with the node taint controller that we have today, I think that'll actually solve it. Because node readiness actually, I think, just replaces the taint controller. John or Louis or someone else, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think they're solving for the same problem, which is the new node scale out. So depending on what versions I can get this change backported to in upstream KK, there might be some pushback from Kubernetes maintainers on enabling this new approach in CNI, but we'll see. But depending on what version I can get this backported to, yeah, this might eliminate the need for the init container and the health check on restart.
Yeah, I agree with your comment about like the scale out. I do expect node coding continue to help there. What's not clear to me is the backport version of Containerd, how that would map to the backport version of Kubernetes that Istio is supporting, because that's right. What we ultimately care about for the user.
Right. So my understanding of this is that all the logic for reading the CNI config is in a library. It's not actually happening in Containerd's service itself. So that means because we're just making a library change, the Kubernetes, the older Kubernetes versions can take that without much risk because of the way that the library is written, and it's not changing the contract between kubelet and Containerd. None of the RPC calls are changing. None of the contracts there are changing. It's just pure library code. And so assuming that the container maintainer I talked to is nobody disagreed with him or what have you, if we can get this backported to Containerd 2.0, I think that gets us to Kubernetes 131, 132. I have to double check. 134 is about to launch, so I think this gets us 2 to 3 Kubernetes versions back. So again, to be clear, I think we still probably want the init container fix, but for users who want sort of that clean ambient experience without init containers or things like that, I think this would be preferable for newer versions, assuming I can get back the backports to older to these Kubernetes versions and Containerd versions.
Yeah, definitely. I just checked. So right now we're supporting 126 is supporting the older version we claim to support officially is 129, right? So when 127 goes out, I assume that would be moved to 130. And then when the next release releases 131 might be the minimum release of Kubernetes version we support.
Yeah, we test for really ancient. I think we still test for 123. So this wouldn't necessarily be for every single person we support, which is again why we need the older. We still need the health check approach. But I think moving forward, we could lean on this more, assuming the backports go well.
Yep.
Okay, it looks like Containerd 2.0 just launched last year, so the Kubernetes versions probably are going to be a little bit newer, maybe Kubernetes 133 instead of 130. So smaller subset, but still directionally good.
Okay, so if that's the case, do you all think we probably need both solution then?
100%. Yeah, I've been trying to. Yeah, we definitely need both.
Okay.
Okay, do we think we flogged that horse? Do we have other topics?
I assume that's no.
Yeah, I'll take that as a no. Yeah, I guess everybody can have 20 minutes back.
All right, thanks everyone.
Thanks,
Thanks,
everyone.
folks.
Bye.